crushed up ice, slush, slurry, and all of this. I got my floating skis. I'm moving, I hit it, go right across. Because what? My buoyant ski will float. And here again, in specialized areas, and like we said, a lot of ancient stuff had a lot of this stuff in it, but because of wars and this and that, a lot of it got lost. And some of it is still buried out in the desert, and it might be another few hundred years before we ever find it, unless we find better ways of finding stuff in the desert, if that's a priority. But we don't want to necessarily get into that because we're not necessarily historians. We just here again bumped into these water shoes, and that's what we're doing. So the first bolts of bamboo, whatever light sticks we just found on the water, on the water's edge, whatever is a lake, river, stream, or whatever. We just need something to help us get across. We run after animals. Second thing, we got a bladder or stomach. Now, the third thing we can do is make a bamboo frame or wood frame, and then put a hide around it. And now we got a boat. We take a big hide, like a cow hide or some large animal hide. We make a wooden frame, and then we put the hide around it. So now we got a boat. And now we can can actually get inside of it, and get inside of it and carry stuff. Where before we could just hang on. So now, instead of hanging on, we are inside. Or we got a large animal hide. We put all our belongings in it. We kind of sew it up, gather it up, sew it up, and then we sit on top of it. Or we could put a larger part of our body on it. Maybe not the whole body, but a lot of parts of the body. Stick our feet out and kick a little bit. So we're slowly coming out of the water. So now we got 3/4 of our body out of the water. And the same thing with the bamboo. Instead of having one bamboo stick, we put a bunch of them together, crisscross. Now we can put our goods on the raft, floating, and maybe we got enough room to put all our goods on top, and we get our children on top, and we get the wife on top, and if we make it big enough, maybe we can get on top and get out of the water. Now, we look at water, and we're looking at water in the ancient format, pre-Columbian, or even further, ancient Egyptian, ancient Roman, Greek, ancient, maybe Egyptian, ancient. So what are we dealing with? A lot of times, it's not the water that's the problem. The water could be shallow, but the problem is the temperature. If the water is frigid, we could still have a big problem standing in cold water for long periods of time. If we stand in cold water for long periods of time, what will happen? We get frostbite, get those other disorders associated with cold water, thermal problems, whatever. So you don't want to necessarily get in cold water for long periods of time. So the idea of getting the whole body out of the water became a bit of something that we want to do. And the second thing, in the tropical climate, you got animals that's running around in the water, underwater, snakes and lizards and alligators and barracudas. There's all kind of things that's running around in the water, parasites and all kind of things that's running around in the water. Sewage and just all kind of things running around in the water. and you don't necessarily want to stay in the water for a long period of time. So here again, the emphasis, the impetus of moving, my body. You know, I want to take my body and move it out of the water. So the idea of larger and larger, getting up a bigger, at least big enough, a platform at least big enough to hold my goods and my goodies. And if it could hold me, that's even better. So now we're moving into what we call a boat. Now, technically, the difference between a boat and a raft is a raft have separate elements that support itself, like bamboo can float. So a lot of bamboo is you can have holes through it, through the floor of the raft, through the floor of the raft, not the bamboo, floor of the raft, and the thing will float because the buoyancy is in the individual units of bamboo. But in a bladder, if I got a bladder, I punch a hole in it anywhere, it'll fill full of water and the thing go down or it don't work. So the shell of the bladder or the shell of the boat holds the thing up. If I got a boat, punch a hole in the bottom, the thing will sink. If I got a raft, punch a hole in the bottom, it won't sink because the other elements will keep it floating, and so we take that into consideration. So we move on the second thing. Well, we talked early bamboo, the bladders, skin boats, hide boats, something they call carousel boats, mother boats, which is we build a frame, then we tie the skin on. But that's as far as we go, as far as boats go, because we're going to go sideways now because we're dealing with a raft, a specialized raft. And you can call, if you want to, a snow ski a bit of a raft with an asterisk. And you can call a water ski, maybe with a smaller asterisk, a split raft. If you got a large water ski, large enough for the thing to start floating a little bit, it can start floating a little bit, and it's a little bit longer, and, because it's for marsh and swamp, and, in late winter, they got this slush, and you're hanging right on the late winter. In other words, up in the mountains you got good snow, but as you ski down to a valley, you run into slush, and then you go back up, and you might run into snow, and you come back down. Right around the edges, the temperate zone, you start running back into slush. So you want a bit of a heavier snow ski that can kind of work between, these two mediums, so the water ski, and the thing works. And of course, a little bit bigger, we get into a water shoe, marsh, heavy marsh, swamp, light swamp, heavy swamp, bog, and God forbid, quicksand and all this kind of stuff. We haven't been in quicksand, but we put a little asterisk on that, and we want to say we haven't been in quicksand, so we can't say that water shoes work in quicksand. But being a water product, I'll go out and try it out. Might carry a harness, but I think it'll look like the physics. The physics looks good. Look like it'll work. Okay, so we're gonna keep on.